morning, everyone. We'll open this meeting. Um, Just checking to see if anybody, a conflict of interest, if anybody has a conflict of interest. The reason I use conflicts, I don't know how to say pecuniary, so I thought I'd use the word conflict. Anyway, little start. Right off the bat, we have a presentation this morning from John Harris. John, would you come forward, please? Make sure your mic is on, and you have 10 minutes.
And good morning, and thank you for letting me come and speak to you today. We have seen a change in the political landscape here in Norfolk. The residents have turned away from an approach that sometimes left some issues unresolved, and it sent a clear message that we want to move forward and we want to see change. Part of that conversation centered on what's happening in our downtown areas, specifically in the downtown area of Simcoe. I come before you today to ask for your assistance in the work that we are undertaking. The renewal is underway in the downtown core of Simcoe. Investments are happening, new stores are opening, excitement is building. Yet the narrative of fear still haunts us. People feel that it's unsafe. Now, I think some of us know that that reality is quite different, but sometimes the facts give way to perception, and that's the nature of political life in a community. As such, I come here to enlist your help if possible. We are asking for you to consider embracing an enhanced community policing initiative. In order to turn the page on the identity of our downtown, we want to control the narrative. We want to define it and set its character by our own terms. The OPP has been excellent partners to us, and they've always answered the call of the communities. Here's the ask, that at the discretion of the OPP, that the detachment increase foot patrols in the downtown area for a limited duration of time of their choosing. We need a strategically placed and well-constructed use of resources to alter the perception. We need to, as certain properties are developed and that development is starting to take place, that the consideration of a remote office be placed in the downtown to be established for a limited duration of time. Again, this is to turn the perception of the fear that the community has in some regards. Finally, that officers are out of their cars and in relationships with our communities. We can't do this alone. Together is the only way for us to move forward. The OPP are professionals, and we know that they have the capabilities and the resources to help us address the needs that we have. We need help changing the narrative. The path forward will be one that is forged in deep trust and a working relationship with all stakeholders in our communities. No worries. We're asking you to partner with us. This election was the easy moment. Now the hard work begins. And that is the end of my presentation. And with that, I can take any questions if you have any.
Go ahead. Open. You're saying an office? Is that what?
The most important thing, there's a perception in the downtown. As the Norfolk was sold and they began their work, a lot of things have changed downtown. Other properties are beginning to come to life. The Malibu is another example. If you listen to the narrative, people are saying they're afraid to walk downtown. Now, I've spent a lot of time downtown. There's nothing to be afraid of downtown. In fact, if you go back from the work the OPP has done with their street crimes unit and other initiatives they have done, the situation table we asked for and other things, there's a lot of turn that has happened down there. This is completely a perception issue. That's why I think that if we get the OPP using the skills that they already have to do something that the community perceives as a problem, to address something the community sees as a problem, we can have a major turning point here. The narrative for us is we want people coming downtown. But if the barrier to that is people are afraid for whatever reason, then what better way to build a relationship with our local detachment than having officers in the street at their discretion? Because yes, it's going to be costly. There is going to be a cost. If we do it smart and it's a perception-changing event, you have the chance to take control of the narrative and design what we want the downtown to be. Historically, candidly, previous councils have let the narrative be told by other people. Other events have driven what our downtowns have come to be known by. I don't want to do that anymore. This is our county. Let's take control of the narrative and let's control what we want. Let's have the relationship with officers and the detachment that we want to have. They provincially embrace a community policing model, then let's really amp that up and have that define our relationship locally with our law enforcement. Together, all stakeholders in this community are going to have to start to pull together. This is the first visit to one committee. The next is to get the health unit on board. The next after that is to get all the key stakeholders addressing this issue together. We have been deeply siloed for years. And until we get to the point where we're all pulling in one direction, we're going to continue to spin our wheels. The community is tired of that. The community wants to move forward. The community wants to change.
Mike?
Yes, thank you. The OPP dollars, we're hearing they are stretched, but how many months do you think you require a downtown officer base?
The honest answer to that question lies with the OPP. I can tell, when I was an elected official, I often would go to whatever committee or go to whatever meeting that I went to, and I would say the end goal is this: you're the professionals, help us get to the end goal. Because sometimes as a politician, you can over-prescribe something and you can lay down something that you think is an actual fix, or you could go to the people who are actually the professionals who do this every day and they can help us define what it is and what we need. That's why I say community policing initiative. The one thing that's important is to get people in relationship. How they do it, I don't really care about the details. The end goal is we want the perception to change. So that's why I don't want to be over-prescriptive. So I don't know. Use the resources well, at the best advantage, and the professionals are going to be the ones that tell us how to do that.
So do you feel that the drugs is the issue, or is it something else, assault or?
Personally, I think it's the perception. There is in politics, let's be blunt, in politics you can deliver and you can have enormous amounts of success and that can fall on deaf ears. But if you have a good message, that resonates. That's what elections are about. That's what political campaigns are about. It's not about truth, it's about perception. In this, there is a lie downtown that says it's unsafe. Many things have changed. The fundamentals are changing every day. Growth is happening. At this point, then let us change the perception. Let's use the tools and the resources we have to control what people think of our downtown and actually make it what it is. Are there issues? Yes, there are. Are there problems? Yes, they are. Is it as bleak and as dire as everyone makes it out to be? No, it's not.
Last question. Are you thinking that people aren't shopping downtown because of this?
I think there's a whole host of problems. And I think that for so many years, this problem has been left untackled, right? So now what we're beginning to do is we're starting to tackle some of the issues. I think you have to change the fundamentals of downtown to make it attractive for business owners. I think you have to engage with the OPP as partners and give them the ability and the free movement to say, this is how we can help control this narrative, because that's their piece. I need the health unit to be actually engaged in dealing with some of the issues that are downtown. I need holistically for staff to be engaged in a different way about some of the things that they're doing. And counselors, we've had a sea change. This is the first time, I feel, we've had the ability to really cast a vision for this county and really move forward. So it's part of the problem, it's not the only problem. We have several things happening all at once, and we need to start to address the pieces one by one.
Thank
Mr. Harris, I do have a quick question on, you said something very relevant. You said the community's got to get more involved. And the slogan seems to be of Norfolk County, working together with our community. We have trouble getting volunteers for our community policing program. I mean, that's where something get involved. You don't see enough officers, as you say. I think the inspector will agree with me. I think there was 500 911 calls in Simcoe area last year, roughly that number. 90% of 911 calls are false. That's something community can get involved. You're right on the target when it says that health department, fire and safety, because if you clean up an area, it's a proven fact that crime will drop. And if we clean up some of these areas, and A good example is for 200 years, the churches had some of the greatest meals you'd ever want. And then the health department come in and said, you have to have 3 sinks. And that ended that. So maybe we can get citizens to get the community a little more, the community citizens to get the council, get them a little more active, like the health, like the fire and safety. It has to start small, but I agree with you that on 100%. I got to ask the inspector, though, I'll put a question to our inspector. What about auxiliary officers just walking the streets and relating to the public?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We do have auxiliary officers. However, they will come out and walk the beat with a uniform officer. We will not send them out necessarily on their own unsupervised. There's policy to that. But we do continue to have foot patrol downtown. And I just want to thank Mr. Harris for coming forward today with the deputation. I think your message is very true in that in order to solve a problem, we need to engage the whole community. We, as the police, do not have all the answers. We are just one cog of a much bigger machine. And we do engage our community partners through the situation table, through our community mobilization officer. And I do think we are making strides. We did have a sub-office downtown. Unfortunately, we lost it. However, we are in the process of gaining a new one. So we will see that downtown at some point in time.
And I want to be very clear here, and I want to make sure this is crystal clear. One of the best partners I think the community has had is the OPP. When we asked for a situation table, when we asked for that to move forward, they answered with that. When we started talking about mental health concerns, they answered with a solution there. When we were talking about the community policing model, we have a community mobilization officer. They have done what other departments haven't done. This is an easy ask for me. This is easy to come here to say this because with this partner, I don't have much concern. It's the formality of me coming and saying this is the piece we need. As you said with the community engagement piece, the next part, the community engagement part, the next part is to go to the churches and say, look, there was a time when there were more wraparound services. There are certain things that government can do, but there's other things they can't. And we have the resources out to build that engagement as well. Like the inspector said, it's all of us moving together in one direction. This is just the first of many times you're going to see me in front of different committees saying we need to all pull in one direction. And like I said, these guys, I don't have much concern there because whatever we can get, it's going to be good. They always pull and they always deliver. So this is the easy ask.
You have given a very broad scope, which is very nice to see. The fact that the community policing, as the inspector said, just one cog. You yourself, you're probably very busy, but would you help community policing, for example? Is that a group you would join and help them recruit new members? Because obviously you're well known in the community. There's an example yourself. It's something would you be interested in?
It is possibly something I have been interested in. I've been a member of that committee before. It was well led. I thought the scope was a little narrow, but I think that given the opportunity to broaden out what the committee does and what we can engage in, I'm looking for large answers. Lock it and lose it is not, it's going to help a little bit, but the issues that we face are not going to be solved by lock it or lose it. The issues that we face are going to be solved by changing the fundamentals. If committees can get to that thinking in the broad sense, where we're actually looking at long-term systemic changes to real issues we face, yes, I'll lead whatever you want. If we're going to face on smaller issues, there's time better spent, right? Resources are limited. You've got to spend those well. The opportunities that are happening downtown are first time in decades. My concern right now is to making sure those focus. If I get committees that are focused on that, absolutely, I'll volunteer whatever you want.
Councillor Kim?
Thank you. My apologies for being late.
No
A little
worries.
bit of snow and neighbors and car not starting. So, first question, you may have addressed it in the part that I missed, but do you have a visual as to how you see this happening? Like, do you visually, like I have a visual in my mind very clearly as to how I would see some of this community policing take place. Do you have a visual as to what you would see on a Friday night in the summer?
One sense, it's the actual physical location of an officer. I think in one sense, using the auxiliaries is a smart idea. I understand the concerns that are there. But what an excellent training opportunity to take a seasoned officer with young men and women who are learning about what policing is, putting them down in an environment where they're visually seen by the communities. And I tell you again, this is a perception issue. What I'm asking you is about changing the narrative. One time we asked for something and there was like 20 police officers who went tearing down the downtown on bikes, right? That was a show of force. Okay, that was wonderful. But in the end, it didn't really help us in the long term because it addressed the moment. You can do a directive patrol, but all you're going to do is you're going to push people out to other areas. That's fine. At this moment, what we're saying to the public is we need to be safe. A communication campaign, the OPP is down there. We understand. Community police, this committee, we're committed to helping in that downtown. It doesn't have to be an amazing show of force. It just has to be raising the profile to say, as a partner, we're engaged in this. The other piece to that, honestly, is not so much here. The other part is the health unit, getting them to say, yes, we're involved. The council to say, yes, we're involved. Staff to actually bring initiatives that are actually focused and well-structured to move forward. This is about getting everyone pulling in the same direction. Awareness, some demonstration of here we are, we're engaged. Friday night when things are happening. Right now, now's not the time. It's cold, no one's down there. When spring breaks, when summer comes, that's the time. And that's when all that construction is going to be happening. I want to take control of that narrative. We're building, we're moving, we're heading somewhere else. And by the way, the police are partners with us. And they're going to make sure that everyone's safe. Come down and see what's happening. My wife plays every night in different venues. We're getting live music in the downtown. We're trying everything we can to help assist that. That's the community side of this. Now it's the government side of this, the social agency side of this. If I could get to the situation table, I'd ask them all at once. Come join us, because something's happening.
I totally agree. I think there is a movement and there is absolutely an opportunity for change to occur. My concerns are always so many committees, and I'm not a big fan of overloading on committees. It's just a lot of people sitting at tables, disconnected, making choices, and and then it goes to this stage and this stage. I'm much more action-oriented. From my perspective as, I'll speak as just a citizen right now, not as a councillor. I was really unaware that Waterford had a community policing association, and I live in the town, right? So I think, again, that engagement piece, and it's not necessarily all done in boardrooms and at the tables. So I completely agree that a physical presence, not like you said, not like a force, that you, but I myself experienced something this summer where I had to call 911 because there was an incident breaking out downtown. And it was, actually I can tell you, it was the Friday night of beach day. It was a hot, hot day. We started to have our offshore workers in town. There were a lot of people out and about, and all heck was breaking loose. And yeah, I would think that from a perception of downtown and being a business owner, that's where you would want to see someone walking or riding a bike or something like that. And then I remember as a kid that you knew all of the officers in your community, right? I know it's different now with the OPP piece, and I'm sure Joe can attest to this as well, that we knew who our police officers were. And that makes a very big difference, and that's why they have officers in high schools, because there's that engagement and there's that connection. And when people feel involved and connected, it makes a big difference.
And I think this is one thing that I've heard time and time again. People harken back to the days when Norfolk had its own police force, and you knew who your officer was. I think that if I had to be candid with you, I had a vision for what this looked like. I want that in Aurelia, that the OPP says, where do we send people if we really want them to understand the model of community policing and engagement? I want them to say, you know what, Norfolk's the place to go. Norfolk's the leader. Norfolk's the one that all works together. Send them here to teach them how it's done. If you want a vision, if you want my vision, that's the vision, that we're the leaders in community policing. but that we're also the leaders in engaging all the stakeholders and moving forward. We need to get out of this siloed approach and into a place where everyone has a shared vision, a shared responsibility, and we're all moving forward.
Mr. Harris, I think everybody at this table totally agrees, and I want to thank you very much for your presentation. Sorry. Yeah, oh, sure, yes.
Okay, my motion is that the Norfolk County Police Services Board receive the presentation of Mr. John Harris, and that Norfolk OPP prepare a report with February meeting to address the concerns noted in the Simcoe Downtown Board for PSB consideration.
Seconder? Oh, Inspector?
Ask one clarifying question. During the deputation, what exactly are the concerns other than it's a perception problem? So the perception problem is very wide, so if I'm to prepare a report for the concerns,
Overwhelmingly, what I hear is people think that it's unsafe downtown.
okay, I can work with that.
You're saying that people think that,
I would say that it's not. I can tell you there was a time in the not too distant past, my daughter, who's a teenager, she asked if she could go with her friend downtown. I said, no, you can't go downtown. It's not happening. Today, I would let her go downtown. However, there's a perception that I'm crazy because lots of things are happening. But if you go down there, that's not what's happening. We need to take control of this narrative before the narrative defines everything around us.
To Mike's motion, I have information here over the last 5 years. The statistics in Simcoe, crime has not risen, but population has risen, mental health has risen, drugs have risen, crime is at the same level it was 5 years ago. So I think we need to publicize the public and let the public know that it was the same as 5 years ago. Like, it's very safe to go downtown Simcoe.
I think what this is it's a communication problem. The former inspector who's temporary, Anderson, she said it most astutely. The historic issue of policing, where you're dealing with the crimes, that's shifting, and now it's shifting into social issues and the ramification of those issues. As such, this county needs to be prepared to say, you know what, the model of what the police are doing on a day-to-day basis is changing, and we have to change with them because we holistically support them, and we have those effects happening in the community. You also need mental health, you need the health, you need other partners to come into this as well, because you know what, in the past we've said it's a crime issue, let the OPP deal with it, and I would say no, the situation table, no one realizes, but to me that's one of the best steps forward we ever took, because that brings everyone to the table, that brings everyone talking, and it gives me a starting point for a community member to say, great, let's go in a new direction.
We do have a motion on the floor.
for the February meeting to address the concern noted in Simcoe Downtown Board for
Do we have a seconder? Kim seconds the motion. Before we, I'm sorry. It's carried, but I'd also like to point out that we have to have a vote. Yeah, all in favor? Carried. I'm with the motion, but I also respect our inspector's word of perception. I do believe that our Simcoe is safe, but the word perception. So we've kind of left you with putting something together, and it's kind of broad-based, but looking forward to hearing on something. Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Thank you for your time.
Inspector Varga here, Any other further comments about this?
Nothing at this time, other than I believe Mr. Harris, the key factor throughout his whole deputation was that we need community engagement. We, the OPP, are just one small cog in a big machine, and the perception, we speak of opioids, mental health, our street team, our officers, we're addressing those, but it's a social issue. We can't solve the opioid problem through enforcement. We need to engage the health unit, the Canadian Mental Health Association. So I believe his theme of community engagement is very important. It's going to take a whole community effort, council, everyone to solve this problem. Everyone has to take their little part of the pie. It's not just going to be enforcement. We're not necessarily in the social worker field, per se.
I think you pretty well gave us your report for February. Thanks.
And
It'll be along that theme, I'm sure.
I totally agree. Obviously, your slogan is working together with our community, so that just fits in. I need to back the meeting up. I need to get Andy in here and swear in. You've been sworn in, okay. Also, my mistake, I should have right off the bat thanked Peter Hellier for his 15 years of service. He did a lot for this community. On behalf of the board, I want to wish him well and thank him very much for all the service he gave to the community through the Police Service Board. So I apologize for being late on that one. So I want to just take one other little detail is introduce Mike and Kim. Obviously, you're well-known, but just a nice formality. We'll start with Kim, just a little bit about yourself.
Guess I don't really need the mic. Anyone who knows me knows I speak fairly loud anyways. I am married to my husband, Larry. We live in Waterford. We have 4 children. I am originally from Hagersville. Inspector Varga and I went to elementary school together. I just want to clarify that. I have a background in social services and a lot of community engagement, a lot of involvement with youth in our community, working with and I tend to veer more towards working with the vulnerable sectors of our population. So I tend to be that voice at the table, and I tend to be fairly common sense, I guess. I'm thrilled to be at council. I'm thrilled to be a part of the PSB, and looking forward to moving forward in a lot of the issues that Mr. Harris had mentioned, not just in Simcoe though, actually across Norfolk County. So that's
Thank you.
me.
Mike?
Yeah, Mike Columbus here. It's my 32nd year as a counselor. 14 of those were in the Township of Delhi, and the rest of them were in Norfolk here. And I live in Delhi, lived there most of my life, married to Kathy, have 2 children who are on their own, thank God. And I was on the Police Services Board briefly for a short period of time and traded Mayor Luke. And again, I'm looking forward to dealing with some of the challenges that we're going to be facing on the Police Services Board. Thanks.
Thank you. Moving on, the adoption of the Police Service Board minutes. Has anybody read them? And if so, do they have any questions? Pages 1 to 5 at the top of your top right corner of your Seeing no questions, could I have a motion? Carol, second? I'm sorry. Oh, and I second it because I was the only one at the meeting. I'm starting to feel important now. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Business arising from the minutes. There's an email from our inspector dated December 14th, the comparative analysis. Would you like to speak on that, Inspector?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At our November PSB meeting, Board Member Oliver had posed the question regarding impaired by alcohol charges for the last 5 years as in Norfolk compared to Elgin, Haldeman, Oxford, and Wellington. And he also posed the same question regarding drugs. So I had an analysis done, and on page 8 is the impaired by alcohol charges for the 5 different counties. And you can see that, and it's done by month and year. So throughout from 2013 to 2018, if you compare Oxford County, because we're basically the same size, we're right up there with impaired charges. 2018, we had 63 up until November. 2017, 76. 16, 83. So it's fairly consistent throughout the last 5 years for that. If we look at impaired by drugs on page 10, again, we're fairly consistent with all the other 5 counties in the 1 to 6 range throughout the 5 years. And on page 12, he also posed the question regarding cannabis offenses. So had the analysis done January to October, and then October till November 24th, because October 17th was when the legislation changed. So in Norfolk County from January to October, we had 30 cannabis occurrences. Calls for service during that same time period were roughly 23,652. And between October and November, after legislation, we had 4 cannabis occurrences. And calls for service were 2,200, which, if you work out percentages, nothing really changed when the legislation came in. And then the lower 2 charts just break down the different charges by month for 2018 in November. So I'm not sure if Councillor Oliver got the answer to his question before he left, but that's what he was looking for.
I took a minute and reviewed those numbers, and we're right in the median of all the other counties. We're not any higher, we're not any lower. There's a spike here and there, but that's to be expected. Our county is, as I said, right in the median of all the other communities as far as alcohol and cannabis goes. Thank you for that report. Do I have any questions for the inspector? Seeing none. Correspondence. Community policing minutes, 13 and 14. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move forward. Sorry, Kim.
We get them sporadically, but yes, we do get from Delhi and from Port Dover. Simcoe, not as often, but they do have Waterford, again, not that often. I try to encourage them to send them to us. They do meet quarterly. The community policing chairs meet quarterly, and they just had a meeting last week, and so they do report there. You know, they're activities and things. So I do that, minutes for that meeting as well, and they do come to this board, and they'll be in the package for February. Yep. So again, I do ask them to send them to me, and then I have them in our package, so I remind them every once in a while. But as I said, most of their activities are reported then to us quarterly at their quarterly meetings, and I do put those minutes in, so you do see it quarterly.
Councillor Kim, in defense, I was at that meeting. In defense, it was Brenda that was at that meeting no, and they are volunteers, and they're was doing some of the duties, and she's has a 9-month-old, and so it is a volunteer organization, and we stay on top of them, but in all fairness, they do get their minutes in. They're not always timely, but we will give you a printout of who's on the committee and all their other details like phone and addresses and such.
Mr.
And
Chair, might
Carol,
I
sorry,
speak
yeah.
to this?
Yeah, sorry, Carol.
Before I was appointed to the Police Services Board, I was the chair of the Simcoe Community Policing Committee. So all of that information that lists the chairs can be found on the Norfolk County website, as well as, I think is there a link to the minutes as well for Norfolk County Policing Committee? Okay.
There are minutes for the Police Services Board on our website. There is not for the community policing groups. They come through me. If someone wants any information on community policing, it comes through me, and then I pass it on to the chairs.
I would suggest that it can be found online somewhere, because I have seen them online.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
double check.
Okay, thank you.
And in regards to the community policing, I would like to, my time this year, I'm in my last year, but I would like to see the Police Services Board take a much more active role in promoting the community policing programs. They do things like the bike patrols, lock it and lose it, just a number of things they do well within their budgets, and I think we can do more to promote community policing through the press, even have them come to us and update us on just what they're doing. There's more can be done, and because they need volunteers. So how do you get volunteers? You publicly go out and see what this program does, and I think we can do more. Any questions? On the next on the agenda is, and I'll turn over to the inspector again, the email from Julie Malin. It's about the speed spy. Is that part of that whole program, Inspector?
Correct. My only response to this is that, as you well know, I did the deputation to council, and it's in council's hands as to whether they're purchased or not. But I can say that the area that Ms. Mallon is speaking of would be in line for getting the speed watch signs, if council deems to purchase them.
And I think our councilors are right up to date on the proposal you put forward to council as far as the speed spy program is. Yes.
Sorry. that they were able to be moved, that there would be a rotation piece, right? And they are movable, and that was great.
Yes, the mobile sign obviously is movable, and it's designed so that we can move it from place to place very quickly to address spot concerns, special events, that type of thing. The pole-mounted ones, I'd call them semi-permanent. They're designed to be there for a period of time. but
What period of time do you
however
think?
long that they're deemed necessary.
Okay.
I mean, like anything, if people learn that, okay, yes, now we're slowing down, we're not having an issue, they can be, because they're on poles, they're solar mounted, they can be moved to another part of the county that has an issue.
Yeah, that was the big thing, is
Yep.
that in terms of bang for the buck kind of thing, and covering all of the areas. Thank you.
And again, I've said this before, that I can speak personally about these signs. We're in Belmont probably once a week, if not more often, and when you come into Belmont, I'm not sure the highway number, but when you're coming into Belmont from the 401, you come from 80 right into 50. And right off the bat, you see that right away. And I have 2 grandchildren in Belmont, so that sign is very effective. It all of a sudden it's there, and you do respect it. I haven't seen anybody fly through it in front of me yet, but anyway, they are very valuable. They do give you that wake-up call.
Yes, council received the report from Inspector Varga. We are not finalized our budget yet, but I would hope that the councilors around the table and the mayor see fit to engage this program.
Thank you, Councillor. Mike? Next on the agenda, I don't know if it's in your package, it probably is the membership for 219. Is that right, Maureen? I have been a regular visitor over the last 8 years to these. They're twice a year, and you often pick up, you get a free breakfast. Okay, that's not the reason I go, but you often pick up things, and then you also get to meet with your counterparts in the other communities. So I'd like a motion to, somebody make a motion. I would like to see this for $50. It's very valuable to have, be part of this organization.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we continue to be members of the OA PSB.
For $50. Seconder, Mike, all in favor? Carried. I need a motion to accept, yes, we usually send 2 people to the spring conference. And even more so in today's day and age with the advent of mental health and drugs and cannabis. I don't know if I'd be able to attend, but I would like to see our newest member, Carol, attend. Would you be available to attend that conference?
I think so at this point. I would hope so.
So I think we can confirm 1. I'm not sure about 2 at this point. Is it the long weekend? And I'd have to check that. It's in Windsor.
You're correct. I think it's the week after the long weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. Generally, the chair and 1 other goes, but our chair, we elect our chair next week, so I have no idea who will be the chair, so. Or next month, yes, sorry, a little slip there. So do we require, Maureen, I really rely on your help again. Do we need a motion? Yeah. I would agree with that.
Do you need a motion? Okay, you need a motion that we send 2 members of the Norfolk County Police Services Board to the spring conference.
Seconder? No, just two, just two. Second by Mike, all in favor, carried. Moving forward, I guess we're calling upon our inspector with his monthly report. We're starting on page 21,
22?
22. We're in top right-hand corner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the OPP report for December 2018. Overtime allotment per the contract, $366,903. Dollars spent to date estimate, $345,136.92, which is 94.07% of the allotment, which is right in line with 2017 numbers at 94.23. Auxiliary policing hours for the month of December were 330. We had three tributes for Constable Sandchuck, recognizing his work on the Citizens Police Academy and his various Christmas Day charitable events. Crime Stoppers report, page 24. Summary of activities for December. There have been 504 anonymous tips received this year. Arrests since inception, 2,113. Over 42 million worth of narcotics seized, 5 million worth of property recovered, and 6,247 charges laid. Student Crime Stoppers, student bursary applications have gone out to all secondary schools in Norfolk and Haldeman counties, and they continue to support the Student Crime Stopper programs within the counties. Promotions, presentations, meetings, they participated, presented to, and met with Dunville Christmas Parade, Cayuga Parade, Langton Santa Claus Parade, and the Hagersville Christmas Parade. They continue to conduct media relations throughout the month. Fundraising, it's passed now on January 17th. They held a fundraising dinner at Boston Pizza. I attended there. It was, they had quite a good crowd. I'm sure that they received various amounts of donations. The board's seeking other ideas and options for continued fundraising efforts. Internationally and nationally, national initiatives continue to be carried out in the coming months with the program. They're focusing on human trafficking, counterfeited goods, and contraband tobacco, all of which is funded by organized crime and terrorist organizations. And under other, the Haldeman Norfolk Crime Stoppers is to host the next Southwest Zone meeting in April 2019. They're actively seeking new board members, and Neil Unwin continues to serve as president. And we continue to assist the Brantford Crime Stoppers with tip-taking, management, and training. Over to page 25. Locally dedicated hours of overtime. For December, we had 555 municipal hours and 130.5 provincial hours. Moving on to page 26. All violent crime, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that the Ontario Provincial Police Norfolk County could expect between 21 and 37 events. During the reported month, 33 actual events were investigated. In review of all violent crime events for 2018, the total fell within the expected 5-year trend range. and the month of May stood out as the month with the greatest number of violent crime events.
Inspector, just a question from the chair. There's violent crime and then there's assaults. Could you just explain,
So
what does it have to reach the violent crime?
So violent crime is a major category,
Correct.
and it includes such things as homicides, other offenses causing death, attempted murder, sex assaults, abductions, robberies, and other crimes against persons. So that's a sum total of all those subcategories.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Mike.
Simcoe obviously is the largest urban center within the county. It is also the major traveling point on whether you're traveling on 3 or 24. It sees the greatest number of visitors on a Friday, Saturday night. Everybody floods into Simcoe, population goes up, and as we all know, more population, more incidents.
We indicated that it was perception that was the problem in the downtown, so it must be all of the town of Simcoe rather than just a certain specific spot.
Well, there's incidents of crime throughout the whole town of Simcoe, much the same as the rest of the county. There's incidents of crime. But when you look at population, again, in Port Rowan, the perception could be the same with 5 incidents of crime there. That's, again, it's perception. I can't define a perception issue, but I can tell you how many incidents we have.
Go ahead.
Okay. So moving on, page 27, assaults. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that the Norfolk County OPP could expect between 12 and 24 events. During the reported month, 24 actual events were investigated. Assault events in Norfolk County reported within the projected range for December. In reviewing all assaults for 2018, the total fell within the expected 5-year trend range. July stood out as a significant drop in assault events was observed during this month. Page 28, domestic disturbances. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that the Norfolk OPP could expect 51 events. During the reported month, 34 actual events were investigated. Domestic disturbance events in Norfolk County reported below the projected range for December. In reviewing all domestics for 2018, the total fell below the expected range. Almost all months except for March, April, and October reported below the expected range. Although we saw a decrease in domestic events in 2018, they are still on an upward trend. Page 29, all property crime. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect between 93 and 119 events. During the reported month, 88 actual events were investigated. In review of all property crime events for 2018, the total fell within just below the expected 5-year trend range. All property crimes saw a slight decrease in 2018, however, is still indicating a downward trend. Break and enters on page 30. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect 15 events during the month. During the reported month, 10 actual events were investigated. Break and enter events in Norfolk reported within the projected range for December. In reviewing all break and enter events for 2018, the total fell within the projected range. April saw a significant increase in break and enter events. These were associated to a prolific offender who was arrested and has since been convicted and is serving penitentiary time. The remainder of the year fell either within or below the projected range. Break and enters continue to trend downward. Frauds on page 31. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect between 9 and 17 events. During the reported month, 16 actual events were investigated. Fraud events in Norfolk County reported within the projected range for December. In reviewing all fraud events for 2018, the total fell within the projected range. August was the only month that reported above the projected range. Fraud events still indicate an upward trend. Mischiefs, page 32. Based on a 5-year trend, it was expected that we could see 27 events. During the reported month, 22 actual events were investigated. Mischiefs reported within the projected range for December. In reviewing all mischief events for 2018, the total fell below the projected range. Mischief events continue to indicate a downward trend. Theft from motor vehicle, page 33. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect 12 events. During the reported month, 4 actual events were investigated. Theft from motor vehicle events reported below the projected range for December. In reviewing all theft from motor vehicle events for 2018, the total fell within the projected range. A significant increase was observed in July, prompting a focus patrol. Although no arrests were made, during that focus patrol, the events returned to being within the projected range or lower.
Just, Inspector, for our new counselors, are you aware of what focus patrols are? Go ahead, sir.
Page 34, theft of vehicle. Based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that the Norfolk OPP could expect 8 events. During the reported month, 7 actual events were investigated. Theft of vehicle events reported within the projected range for December. In reviewing all theft of vehicle events for 2018, the total fell just above the projected range. Significant increases were observed in May and July, contributing to this. Theft of motor vehicle events indicates an upward trend. A number of our theft of vehicle events have been associated to the rash of ATM events.